Letter to Japan, from one who has been with you for over 50 years. Many of the older folks in Japan still remember things like summer nights when a lonely, inviting whistle drifted softly through the warm, evening summer air, telling us that the ramen man, pulling his little cart by hand, was coming slowly through the quiet neighborhoods. It was more than a bowl of hot noodles. It was an invitation to fellowship, the stars shining above, the crickets chirping somewhere just beyond hearing. We would step outside, drawn by that simple call, to share a steaming bowl of ramen. It was a tradition. A cold beer and usually a heartfelt talk with the humble vendor who always seemed ready to lend an understanding ear. It was times like this that the rich businessman and the humble street vendor met on equal grounds before the vendor moved on to the next street. Even walking those narrow alleys home after a hard day's work was so still and empty, the silence broken only by the sound of your own footsteps, and maybe the local train's lonely whistle on its last round for the night. A quiet that swept over us like a cool summer breeze. And who could forget the old grandfather sending his 9-year-old grandson down the street to the beer vending machine? No questions asked, just a handful of coins, and knowing that a cold drink would be delivered by respectful young hands. Those vending machines stood on corners in neighborhoods and stations, unguarded, trusted a symbol of simpler times and simpler folks and trust. Of course, every neighborhood had its Sento, the public bathhouse, marked by the familiar red and blue Noren hanging in the breeze. Families gathered there, children with their mothers, grandfathers with their grandchildren, laughing and talking in the warm, steamy air. It was more than a bath. It was a place of gathering, communication, and comfort. And the New Year's holidays, everyone shopped for days beforehand, knowing that everything would close for a full week. The streets were emptied, shops shuttered, and the quiet settled over towns and cities like snow. Each dwelling had its own history and story to tell. There was excitement in the preparation of traditional food, a feeling much like I remember Christmas in the United States, when neighbors carried heavy bags of shopping. Schools were closed for the New Year's, and laughter filled the air. I remember, too, how foreigners were once a novelty. Children would point and whisper, "Gaijin," with wide eyes and open mouths, amazed that we had come so far to live among you. I first came to Japan as a missionary. I could hardly speak a word of Japanese, and was totally unfamiliar with the customs, food, and even the differences between the way I was raised as an American and the way the Japanese were raised as Japanese. For over 50 years, I have traveled to every prefecture, even as far as remote as Tsushima. Everywhere I have gone, I have found the same spirit. The heart of Japan beats steady and true. But today, things have changed. I see places that used to be green rice fields, but are now apartment buildings. Deep, lush forests of bamboo cleared to make way for parking lots and high-rise apartments and businesses, gradually. Slowly but surely, Japan has now wrapped itself in comfort and convenience. Convenience stores stand open on every corner, day and night. Vending machines offer meals at the push of a button. Supermarkets overflow with goods from across the world. Trains run on time to the minute. Smartphones bring the whole world to our fingertips. But what will happen if and when these attributes and conveniences are disrupted or disappear? This is something that everyone needs to take into consideration. Being so dependent on technology is a precarious thing. I don't say these things to spread fear, to share a truth. The world itself is changing, and not just Japan. But Japan is now so dependent on other countries for its sustainability that if the United States or China or the Middle East sneeze, Japan gets the flu. The earth is shifting beneath us. Climates grow uncertain, and supply lines are fragile. Japan faces a rice crisis. Prices rise, and old stores of rice are pushed onto shelves, and rice is being imported from foreign countries. Essentials like oil, gas, food, finances. So much depends on distant countries. If and when those chains break, how will we endure? How will a people so used to comfort survive chaos? I worry about this, not because I see how deeply Japan has become dependent on ease and order. What some people regard as Japan's greatest strength has become its greatest weakness. I worry because I know the heart of Japan, proud, loyal, and disciplined. When overwhelmed by loss, some may see no way forward. Despair may darken the whole nation. Things can change drastically overnight, as they did during the Great Hanshin earthquake and the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. But this is not a message of fear. It is a message of love and hope, a stark reminder. You once lived close to the earth. Fathers taught sons to fish. Mothers showed daughters how to sew and cook. There was more connection with nature. It would be wise to know the mountains and trails as well as safe places to go when the world becomes uncertain. Your children need to be introduced to nature. Too many kids spend their time in game centers and on their phones, so that reality is becoming blurred. Now is the time to remember and perhaps avoid being overwhelmed because of not being properly prepared. Prepared physically and psychologically, and I might add, spiritually. Let us start small, keeping a modest stock of food and water, learning to cook from scratch, finding safe paths into nature, teaching our children to fish, to sew, to grow food, and to be familiar with the local plants and how they're used to our benefits, and likewise, which plants are to be avoided. These are not just survival skills. They are the keys to resilience. Money cannot feed us when shelves are empty. Technology cannot replace the strength of family. A university degree may teach you how to make money, but it rarely teaches you how to survive without money. I say this as one who has embraced Japan for over 50 years, not as a foreigner judging from afar, but as one who has shared your joys, your sorrows, and your spirit. This is a friend's warning, given in love and hope. May we carry this message in our hearts, and may it inspire us to prepare, to connect, and to remember the Japan that was once humble. Great changes are on the horizon, and it would be wise to look ahead and be prepared. I would love to hear any thoughts you may have on this subject. Your longtime friend, Roger Frucci, Yoroshiku Onagashimasu.